Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. All praises be to Allah. Peace and blessings be upon our Prophet Muhammad, his family and his companion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings be upon you all. Thank you all for coming. Today is a very important subject since we are very close to Halloween. Today, I want to go even further than just Halloween. I want to go to something that it is practiced even within our Islamic community, which is the vital energy, such as meditation, yoga, all these things. So I feel that this is more important to talk about than just talking about one event that happens every year, which is Halloween. And Alhamdulillah, I have been studying a lot about these things. I was a victim of one of those things that I was doing, like Kung Fu. But after I started learning more about the spiritual context and about the religious context, I ask Allah to help me repenting from these things. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me. So today we're going to be talking about this as a person who experienced in this and who was in the past doing practices like this. Even before Islam, I used to be very drawn to the Eastern culture and the Eastern religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoists. Today we're going to be talking more about that, inshallah. So it is actually very practiced here in the West. Some people even call it the Western Buddhism. The Western, since 1970s, when the hippies came into existence, everyone is like, okay, you're just free, do whatever we want. And then they became atheists, but they wanted to fill that void inside them. So instead of going to an organized religion, they go to what we call, the New Age religion, which is like spiritualism. They call spiritualism, they call it vital energy. They have so many names for it, spiritual healing. And then when you ask them, are you religious? What are you, Christian or Muslim? And they're like, no, I'm just spiritual. We hear this a lot, right? From a lot of people. So what does that mean? And is it good or not? Well, I want to start with the words of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واتبعوا ما تتلو الشياطين على ملك سليمان وما كفر سليمان ولكن الشياطين كفروا. And they followed instead what the devils had recited during the reign of Solomon. It was not Solomon who disbelieved, but the devil disbelieved. يعلمون الناس السحر وما أنزل على الملكين ببابل هاروت وماروت. Teaching people magic and that which was revealed to the two angels of Babylon, Harut and Marut. وما يعلمان من أحد حتى يقولا إنما نحن فتنة فلا تكفر. But the two angels do not teach anyone unless they say, we are trial, so do not disbelieve. فيتعلمون منهما ما يفرقون به بين المرء وزوجه وما هم بضارين به من أحد إلا بإذن الله. And yet they learn from them that by which they cause separation between man and his wife. Usually people go to magic and doing things to bring the husband and wife together or lovers together. But what is actually happening is the opposite. But they do not harm anyone through it except by permission of Allah. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنفَعُهُمْ. And the people learn what harms them and does not benefit them. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. But they certainly knew that whoever purchased the magic would not have in the hereafter any share, and wretched is that for which they sold themselves, if they only knew. ولو أنهم آمنوا واتقوا لمثوبة من عند الله خير لو كانوا يعلمون. And if they had believed and feared Allah, then the reward from Allah would have been far better if they only knew. Okay, so I want to start with the story of Buddha, who first was a Hindu man, by the way. And if you go down on Garland Road and Beltline, there is a big Buddhist temple over there that is owned by the Vietnamese. And if you look at the walls, it's like a storyboard of the story of Buddha and how he became a Buddha. So he fled from India. He sat by himself under the tree for many, many days and months. And then he got what we call the enlightenment. And they say that if you just meditate enough, you will be saved from the suffering and from the earthly things, and you just give everything up and start doing things to better yourself. Then maybe one day you become an avatar, an avatar that means like a god, and you will become in the Buddha state. Talking about the third eye, that it has to be open in order to cleanse your chakras, taking that energy from the universe, and then cleanse your chakras, and then from there you can be a better person, have better life, more blessings. You feel happier. You take that anxiety off, depression off, all these things. And they call this also illumination, like enlightenment, or clairvoyance. Clairvoyance, that means like you will see the road clear to you, that you can even know your future, what's going to happen to you. And all of this, by the way, is nothing but a deception of shaitan. They have to sit and just empty their mind from all the thoughts, making all their thoughts quiet, not to think about anything. If they sit quiet for long enough, they start having this visualization that comes from within themselves to see things about themselves, and they feel good about it. They feel that depression is going away. If we actually look at this type of things, people try to Islamize it as well here also in the Islamic world. I've seen it also a lot now in the Middle East, that people started doing this, saying, oh, we have to meditate and all these things. Now, for us as Muslims, we have meditation, but our meditation is different than the meditation of the Eastern meditation, to keep your mind settled and not to think about anything. Because in order to be connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator. But instead over here, it tells you the opposite. It tells you not to think about anything, to empty your mind and to settle all your thoughts. The first meditation that it was mentioned in the Quran was the meditation of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. And he was not, as they say, that he wasn't thinking. He was actually thinking. And he was pondering upon the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we shouldn't be comparing this with the meditation of Buddha or the New Age or whatever, because all of that is just the deception of shaitan. Whatever we have in Islam, shaitan takes it and rips it off from the true religion, and then he twisted it around and make it exactly the opposite. Subhanallah. So when we are doing dhikr or when we are meditating, we should be thinking and doing dhikr only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that medication, the Eastern meditation, does it really work or not? I'm going to show you some documents from real doctors that they did studies about the benefits of the meditation, inshallah. Also in meditation, they tell you that let the energy of the universe come unto you. and you're gonna become like a universe. I don't know if you have heard about the story of Krishna, the god of the Hindu, but they say that when he was a baby, that he ate something and then his mother told him, did you eat that? He actually lies, subhanAllah, a god lies, right? So he lied and he said no. And she said, okay, open your mouth. I read that in their books, that he opens his mouth and she sees the universe inside his mouth, subhanAllah. All of that is just bogus, right? But what I'm saying over here is that they believe what we call in Islamic Aqidah pantheism. Pantheism it means like oneness of being with the existence. And it means like God is incarnated in the universe and that God manifests in the universe. And this is not very far away from what also Christians believe in the Holy Ghost incarnating inside a human being, right? Or manifesting inside a human being. This aqidah does not align with the Islamic teaching because we have a separation between the creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and between the creation. Whether with Tawheed al-Uluhiyya, with the worship or the lordship, or even in the Asma and As-Sifat, which is the names and the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Hindu, Buddhists, Taoists, Christians, all of these people, what they do is they believe that one day we are uniting with God, even the Sikhs, by the way, we are uniting with God and we become one with God. And you will see also Muslim right now, they're thinking about this is like, since Allah breathed inside us, so there is a part of God inside us. And that's not true. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنَفَخْنَا مِن رُوحِهِ. That means from Allah's soul. That means it's from the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It didn't say that we have breathed our soul into him. From the soul. Okay. That means it's the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our soul is a creation. It is a creation from Allah. It is not Allah. That's the difference between pantheism and monotheism. So pantheism, it means like we are a part of the universe and we become God, or when we die, we unite with God. And that's actually a lot of religions that they believe in that. And that's what Shaitan wants the people to believe, that you is in a full control of your life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not interfere with your life. You make your destiny. And at the end, you become a God. And we see that, by the way, in most of the movies, even in the children's animation. I've watched many of these, like the last Airbender of Avatar, The Legend of Korra, Prince Dragon. All of these, by the way, animation that our kids watch, and they put these ideologies, these seeds in the mind of our kids to tell them that you are in a full control. There is no God, and you become a God. And you have superpowers. You can do whatever you want. You can just put your hand like that, and then suddenly this chair is going to be floating on over the ground or something, right? Marvel movies, same thing. You're special. You can do magical things. Doctor Strange. And we were grown on these things. But I did not realize this until I grew up. And in many ways, like while I'm studying in Aqidah, you start struggling with these thoughts and ideas. It's like, okay, what is right? But then the best thing to do is just to go back to the source, which is the source of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It has everything in there. It's all wrong, and it is not a part of Islam. We have cosmic energy, we have vital energy, we have healing energy that people believe in it. Is it real or not? This is what I'm going to be, talking about. And it's all, by the way, evil, because the science has not proved anything of that. They did not prove anything of the vital energy, that it works or anything like that. I'm going to show you that, inshallah. But it's all a deception of Shaitan. It tells you like, okay, you know what? You don't have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for anything. Just go to a psychic and let them put their hands on you, practice Reiki on you, or like put your hands on you, or go and do that sunbathing thing in yoga or something like this, and you will be healed. Or put crystals in the house. because it will change the energy from negative to positive. That's all bogus, by the way. There's no reality in it. Okay. So this is what happened. Just like I mentioned in the Quran that there is Harut and Marut, that they were two angels, and they were actually shayateen, that they were looking like angels. These devils come in our thoughts. You know, when they tell you, don't think of anything, don't do isti'ada, don't say a'udhu billahi min shaitan rajim, don't say bismillah, don't think of Allah. Just like settle all your thoughts and don't think of anything. And then after like few minutes, maybe an hour or so, these thoughts start coming to you and you start seeing things, visualizing things like seeing lights or seeing beings, or like thinking of something that it is something like spiritual, or something that is an entity coming to you and telling you things. You know, all these thoughts is actually waswas of a shaitan. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed the last two surahs, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ وَقُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, because it actually deals with these thoughts, that the waswas, the whispering that comes into our thoughts. In the beings or the entities of malaika, like an angel, they look like an angel. So the angels give them promises, like, we're gonna make you be saved from all the suffering that you have. We're gonna give you a lot of blessings. We're gonna give you a lot of money. And by the way, that's a Hindu ideology, and you see that in the Christian also ideology, especially the Southern Baptists and so on. They tell you that you're suffering because you're not pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you're suffering because this is a punishment for you. In Islam, we don't have that. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can punish us for that, but the people are in Gaza that they are suffering right now, it's not because of their sins. You can't say that there's a child who is being killed because he did a sin or anything like that. The caste system, yeah. Can you explain a little bit about it? I'm not really that.
Yeah, and you can tell who's in which caste system by their surname too, a lot of times. And so there's like the lowest caste is Dalit. And a lot of them are actually converting to Islam because they're treated so badly by like the rest. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah. So the caste system is like the ones who are in the lower status in their like, because if you see a person that he is very poor and there's no one is helping him and he's looking like everybody's hating them and everything, it's because they did something in their old life, that this is like a karma. And we're going to talk about the karma, that, you know, whatever they lived in their old life, they reincarnated, and now it's taking a toll in their life. They're being punished for it, right? And if they elevate themselves to do something good, then when they die, they reincarnate in the next life, and they become like, they are better, they're richer, they're happier, and so on. Another thing that in our community I see a lot, and I've seen it also even here in United States, that they use amulets. We call it like hijab, that amulets, which is like a little piece of paper. They put Quran in it or something like this, and then they roll it, and then they put it inside like a leather thing, and they sew it and they put it on them, thinking that this is going to be a protection for them, And this is in Islam also haram. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, whoever wears an amulet, ta'weez or charm, has committed shirk. Shirk means polytheism. It's like you're saying to yourself that Allah is not sufficient enough to help me, so I need to have some kind of helper. I'm getting this amulet and put it over here to protect me. So what are the people doing? They're making other gods with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It becomes like an idol. Not only amulets, we have sometimes ring, or the blue eye, or the horseshoe, right? I've seen it a lot. People do use it, all these things. All of these actually from the bad culture of what we call Muslims, and even they take it from other religions and so on, and it is not a part of Islam. It is haram. They use symbolism. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have a symbol. Okay, what about this moon that they put on the top of the mosque? Isn't that an Islamic symbol? No, it's not. This actually came at the time of the Ottomans. It came in like late time, as a symbol of the Islam, just like the cross for the Christians and so on. But as Muslims, we don't have a symbol. Allah does not have a symbol. Allah is not a shape. We cannot shape him. Whatever you think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is different of what you think. SubhanAllah. It's beyond our imagination. So some of the evil practices that people do, unlawful, sinful things. And I'm talking about the major sins like prostitution. Prostitution actually is one of the doors for people to be possessed by shaitan. Magic, going to psychics, evil eye, jealousy, hatred. All of these are evil practices that it is an invitation of shaitan to come into your life and play with your consciousness. Playing games such as Ouija, tarot cards too, watching horror movies, horoscopes, palm readings, and so on. Trying to practice curiosity. A lot of people, I'm like, oh, I don't believe in these things, but I'm very curious. I want to go to a haunted house and see what happens when I go there. Am I going to be scared or not? Some people are going to a temple and they're doing some practices, prostration to Buddha or something. I'm just going to sit there and watch. Okay, watching from afar just to learn is okay. But sometimes, just sitting too close and then spending too much time watching and everything, these doubts are going to come into your heart. So you're supposed to, to close these doors. Don't they say like curiosity kills the cat? Don't make that curiosity to kill you, right? Depression and anxiety, deep depression, especially the clinical depression and, grief. These things actually can bring the shaitan into your heart to make you lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mercy. And to be like there's a lot of people that they will be blaming Allah. Oh Allah, why did you take him away from me? Why did you make him die? He's too young. As they have more wisdom than Allah's wisdom. Allah's wisdom is nothing that we can imagine. So we don't know what's good outcome that is going to come from this. Dirtiness, dirty houses. Some people, they will be like watching YouTube or TikTok while in the bathroom. And then you open on a TikTok and there is a Quran. And you hear the Quran while you're in the bathroom. That's haram. That's an invitation of shaitan to attack you. Because he does not like to hear Allah's words. And the bathroom is the house of shaitan. So it's better not to bring that phone with you inside the bathroom. And the people start thinking, oh, okay, you know what? If I practice these things, really, I'm really feeling good. I'm really feeling this. Of course, it's like you're giving like a sacrifice. You're sacrificing your body to shaitan. When a person is doing meditation and when they're doing yoga and they're letting in that energy, it's like you're sacrificing your body to shaitan. SubhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and mention the day when he will gather them all and then say to the angels, did these people used to worship you? They will say, exalted are you. You, O Allah, are our benefactor, not them. Rather, they used to worship what? The jinn. So many people, they think, oh, angels are going to help me. And so they start asking for angel this and angel this and angel just this, or they call it entities, or they call it beings, especially the people who practice Reiki. They have to say words and ask for entities to come manifest inside them to give them that energy to heal. Okay? So they're sacrificing their own body to let that entity inside them. Those are beings, are not angels. They're not good. They're jinn. Most of them were believers in them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and indeed do the devils inspire their allies among them. Those people become allies to the jinn. And they know it, by the way. They know it. They call them demons, they call them entities, they call them whatever. Now, some of these practices that we see, like Tesla code, access bars, subliminal affirmation, theta healing, feng shui, holistic healing, emotional medicine, Reiki therapy, attraction law. Oh, attraction law. A lot of people believe in these things. They're like, oh, if I think positive, I'm attracting it to myself. There's nothing like that. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala afflict you with this, it's for your good. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you something good, it's for your good too. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, how good is the state of the believer? If an affliction happened to them, he is patient. And if good tidings happen to him, he's grateful. Subhanallah. He returned everything to who? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not because of what I think, and then things are going to happen to me because I am just thinking about it and I'm attracting it. Or like twin fire. I know a revert sister. She was also a revert, and her husband also became a Muslim, mashallah. And she was a very devoted Muslim. I'm telling you, she was also a student of knowledge. She was like a scholar. Subhanallah, she started believing in what we call twin fire. And she saw a man and she kind of fell in love with him. And she's married, by the way. So she started talking to him. She started cheating on her husband and so on. Right now, I'm telling you, sister, she's a homeless right now. The father took the kids because she started doing drugs, and she started doing like heavy drugs because she wanted to be with that man and so on. Subhanallah, it ruined her because she believed in stuff like this, the twin fire and the attraction and all these things. Subhanallah. She let shaitan in. And what does the Quran says? That those people, they were teaching what? To separate the husband from the wife. Opposite of what people try to tell you, that, oh no, I'm going to make some kind of spill to have the husband and wife love each other more and bring people together more. It's actually doing the opposite. It's not doing any good. Subhanallah. And it all leads to atheism. It leads to disbelieving in Allah, putting doubts in our heart, inflating that ego inside me, that I will have that power, superpower, to do the miracles and help people. So a person starts what? Worshipping their own selves, worshipping their own body, their souls, and so on. It leads to atheism. And by the way, atheism here, a lot of people, they translate it as not believing in God, right? Not believing in a God. But in Arabic, ilhad or mulhid, which we translate to atheism, it also means that they're like agnostics who don't believe in, who believe that there is an existence of God, but they don't worship God. They don't believe in God. And they start worshiping other things because their loyalty is not Allah. They start putting other loyalties other than Allah, themselves, their ego, the practices that they do, their children, their husbands. And so those are little idols in our hearts. They don't have to, the idols are not, not necessarily have to be idols like statues, but we have statues in our hearts, like the ego, for example. Okay, let's talk about reincarnation. That if a person dies, then they will be reborn again, right? And that takes me to also in the same circle of karma. What comes around goes around. Because a person is doing wrong, then, it will come to them. Now, in Islam, we have that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish us, whether on earth or but we don't call it karma. And we shouldn't believe in it. If that person was not punished in this life, then he will be reincarnated to be punished in this life. If a person, for example, torture a dog by breaking its leg, then that person is going to be reborn like a dog and a person will punish him in the same way. It's like a circle. It's rooted in the Western culture. It is. Like if it's not from the Hindu, you have also the Celtic. You know, the Celtic, the people who come from the Norse and so on. A lot of people, they still have this rooted in them because from their ancestors. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, have they not considered how many generations we destroyed before them, that they to them will not return? There's nothing called reincarnation. They will return to who? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will be judged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And that also, a lot of people, when they believe in reincarnation, they will disbelieve in a very important aspect in the beliefs of Islam, which is believing in the Day of Judgment. Whoever believe in the reincarnation, they disbelieve in the Day of Judgment because they say, well, there's no Day of Judgment. Allah, the people will be rewarded and blessed or punished by the reincarnation, by reborn and reborn and reborn and reborn. Okay. And one of the very important beliefs in Islam, and it is one of the most important one, is believing in the Day of Judgment. And if a person does not believe in the Day of Judgment, they're not a Muslim, because that's one of the 6 beliefs that I always talk about, right? So vital energy is basically offering. That's actually shirk. It's actually polytheism. Hand reading, zodiac reading, horoscopes, all of these actually shirk, polytheism. To define polytheism, it means it's a very serious and takes you one person out of the folds of Islam, is the fact of ascribing something that belongs to Allah to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so do not attribute to Allah equals while you know that there is nothing similar to him. And those people who are practicing the Reiki and the vital energy and so on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about them, says, and those they call upon besides him, do not respond to them with a thing, except as one who stretched his hand towards water from afar, calling it to reach his mouth, but it will not reach him. In other words, what they're doing all that effort, but they're not getting anything. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, if you want to seek help, don't seek help from anybody, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, we have to take the reasoning by taking the medicine, going to the doctor. This is good. But using some kind of psychic or some kind of like holistic healing, master, whatever, those people are not going to help us. There is no scientific proof that these things actually work. And even the yoga, a lot of people, they practice yoga and they say, well, we're going to just strip yoga from the spiritual and from the religious thing. We're just going to do as a practice. Actually, yoga is a religious practice for the Buddhists and Hindus. They worship Buddha and they worship themselves by those practices. There are spiritual practices. What if I tell a person, okay, listen, you don't have to do the salah, just do the physical thing because it's good for you. Can we do this to a person? Can we say that to a person? No, we can't do that because the salah and the physical practices is a part of our spiritual practices as well. Yoga for the Hindus is like this. It's their salah. It's their prayer. And I'm going to prove it to you. Look at this video over here.
Yoga is ritual. This is one of the important revolution statement I am making. Yoga is not spiritual. Yoga is ritual.
It's a ritual.
You have to do achamana. You have to invoke Sadashiva. Only then you start doing yoga. Biggest problem in the modern day is amputated yoga. The angas of yoga is cut and packaged. Amputated yoga is the most danger to the modern day. we need to give the original yoga as it is complete to the world.
Just saying. Right? That's scary, isn't it? So it's not a sport, as many people think. It's a ritual. There is a yoga ritual that they tell you if you go outside at the time of Fajr time, dawn time or sunrise and sunset, you're bathing yourself with the sun. You're getting the energy of the universe inside you. That's a ritual. Many people, they try to Islamize that and they say, oh, this is actually a part of Islam. The prophets, they meditated. They were praying. The Prophet ﷺ, he used to be in the cave for 40 days before the angel came to him. He was what? Doing what? Meditation and so on. If a person trying to interpret it in that way, that's an innovation in Islam. This is not something the prophets taught. This is not something that our Sahaba taught. This is an innovation. And the innovation is making people go astray. That's what the Prophet ﷺ says. These Eastern religion, they are what we call esoteric. They believe that there is a hidden knowledge a person has to have, and that hidden knowledge make a person, ego would be inflated, thinking that he is better than anybody else. And by the way, go and see those people who practice the energy and the new age and so on. You will see that arrogance inside them, seeing themselves as they are better than anybody else, that they are cleansed. They manipulate the awareness. They play with the awareness. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and to cleanse our hearts and minds from these things. And we take only Allah's guidance. That's what we need, Allah's guidance from the Quran and the Sunnah, and not to try to patch other religions, other cultures into our hearts. I say this and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. If I say something right, then it is from Allah. If I say something wrong, then it is from shaitan and from myself. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.